On October 23rd, Reuters quoted an unnamed U.S. official as revealing that Washington would indefinitely control Venezuela's oil sales after the arrest of leader Nicolas Maduro. Accordingly, the Trump administration will agree to allow Venezuela to sell oil on the global market, but requires that the majority of production be sold to the United States. The official said that thanks to President Trump's successful law enforcement campaign against leader Maduro, Venezuelans will receive fair oil prices from China and other countries instead of the dirt-cheap prices they received previously. According to this official, the U.S. is allowing Venezuela to sell oil to Beijing at fair market prices, not at the unfair, artificially low prices that President Maduro had previously offered to China to settle debts. In a related development, on June 22, Venezuelan lawmakers initially approved plans to open the oil sector to private investors, paving the way for the return of U.S. energy companies. This is a key demand from Mr. Trump. Last week, U.S. Energy Secretary Chris White said the U.S. is now buying Venezuelan oil for about $45 a barrel, about $14 a barrel higher than the previous price of $31 a barrel under Mr. Maduro. For many years, China has been Venezuela's largest oil customer. Oil deals between the two countries have helped Caracas repay massive loans to Beijing based on strawberry-shaped debt agreements. Analysis suggests that Chinese oil imports from Venezuela are expected to plummet from May 2026 as fewer oil tankers are able to leave ports after the U.S. declared control over the South American nation's oil sales. According to local media, the U.S. Army has once again failed to meet its deadline for deploying its first hypersonic weapon system, even though the unit assigned to operate the system has completed training and is ready for deployment. In an official statement, the U.S. Army explained that the deployment process still requires additional time to complete integration steps, ensure safety, and conduct readiness checks to guarantee soldiers receive a reliable, robust, and effective system in combat environments. According to the updated plan, Japan's earliest deployment date has now been moved to early 2026. Notably, as recently as December 2025, the U.S. Army even asserted that the system would be deployed before the end of 2025. This week, the U.S. military admitted it cannot meet that goal. This is not the first time the U.S. Army has missed a deadline. Previously, the military missed the 30th of May 2023 deadline and then failed to meet the September 2025 deployment target. These repeated delays reflect significant technical challenges in ensuring the system operates as designed and meets real-world operational requirements, rather than stemming from fundamental, uncorrected flaws in the missiles developed by Martin. This slowdown also puts considerable pressure on War Secretary Pitt Hatchett, who is pushing for a faster deployment of weapons and a comprehensive overhaul of the defense procurement process, which has been criticized as cumbersome and overly cautious about risk. Since 2018, the Pentagon has spent more than $12 billion on the development, testing, and deployment of hypersonic weapons. According to the U.S. Government Accountability Office, GEO, the first combat unit alone cost approximately $2.7 billion, including the missiles. However, the system's combat effectiveness has not yet been fully assessed. The Pentagon's Office of Test and Evaluation acknowledges that a comprehensive combat evaluation has not yet been conducted, nor is there enough data to determine the weapon's effectiveness, lethality, and survivability. While the U.S. struggled with technical milestones and deployment procedures, China and Russia quickly put hypersonic weapons into service. Russia even used this type of weapon, called a Resnik, in attacks in Ukraine. With its supersonic flight speed, low trajectory, and high maneuverability, hypersonic missiles are considered a major challenge to traditional air defense systems. On October 22, in an interview with reporters on Air Force One, U.S. President Donald Trump commented on Russia's initiative to use frozen U.S. assets to contribute to the Peace Council. The U.S. leader said that if Russia contributed $1 billion to the Peace Council, it would be a step in the right direction. President Trump said that Russian President Vladimir Putin would join the Peace Council and would contribute $1 billion. That's fantastic. Earlier, on October 21, President Putin announced that Russia was ready to contribute $1 billion from Russian assets frozen by previous U.S. administrations. President Trump added that he was willing to serve as chairman of the Peace Council after his presidency and even for life. The White House occupant emphasized, "I have the right to do so if I want to. I mean, I will decide." According to the Peace Council's charter, the replacement of the president can only occur after the current leader voluntarily resigns or is no longer able to perform their duties, and the document states that Trump was the first president. On May 22, the German Environmental Aid Association published the results of an analysis showing that in 2025, Germany will import approximately 101 TWh of liquefied natural gas from the United States, accounting for 96% of the total LNG, the world's largest economy imports. EU consumption has increased by more than 60% compared to 2024, driving import costs up to $3.2 billion from $1.9 billion the previous year. The German Environmental Aid Association warns that this near absolute dependence is making Germany increasingly reliant on an increasingly unpredictable United States. According to this organization, LNG is no longer a stopgap solution for a short-term crisis, but is becoming Berlin's new energy pillar. Sasa Muller-Grenner, the federal executive director of the German Environmental Aid Association, stated that current LNG imports are no longer aimed at addressing a temporary crisis. U.S. President Donald Trump is deliberately using natural gas supplies to push Europe and Germany into a dangerous dependence on fossil fuels. In recent times, energy has repeatedly been used by Trump as a bargaining tool with Europe. Last July, the U.S. and the EU reached an agreement under which Brussels committed to purchasing up to $750 billion worth of U.S. energy products between now and 2028 to avoid the risk of higher tariffs. Most recently, President Trump even threatened to impose tariffs on NATO countries in Europe for opposing his plan regarding Greenland. This stance only softened after a meeting between Trump and NATO Secretary General Marat on the sidelines of the World Economic Forum in Davos. Germany's new dependence is occurring against the backdrop of the EU gradually abandoning its source of cheap pipeline gas from Russia. Prior to 2022, Russia accounted for up to 50% of the EU's total supply. However, following the escalation of the Ukraine conflict and the imposition of Western sanctions, Brussels decided to drastically cut imports. By December 2025, the EU reached an agreement to completely end imports of fossil fuels from Russia by the end of 2027. This marks the end of a dangerous, decades-long dependence. However, according to the U.S.-based Institute for Energy, Economics, and Financial Analysis, the EU is essentially replacing the old dependence with a new geopolitical dependence on U.S. natural gas fraught with risks. The economic consequences are already becoming apparent. After 2 consecutive years of recession in 2023 and 2024, the German economy in 2025 is expected to stagnate, growing by only about 0.2%. The drastic cuts in cheap Russian gas supplies after 2022 triggered a nationwide energy crisis across the EU, driving up wholesale energy prices, escalating the cost of living, and eroding the competitiveness of European industries. Meanwhile, Russia insists it remains a reliable energy supplier while criticizing Western sanctions as contrary to international law. Moscow says it has successfully redirected energy exports to markets considered friendly, despite being excluded from the EU's traditional supply chain. According to Reuters on May 22, shares of Ivan Dentec, a Milan-based company, surged after images of French President Emmanuel Macron wearing sunglasses during a speech at the World Economic Forum. Second Manus went viral online. The glasses worn by the French leader are believed to be the Pacific S1 from the high-end French eyewear brand Henry Julien, priced at €659, equivalent to approximately $770. IVTCH CEO Stefano Fucci commented that this unexpected attention has had a strong impact on the company's stock. He said it certainly created a stunning effect on the market. The price surge boosted Ivzen's market capitalization by approximately 3.5 million euros, equivalent to about $4.1 million in a short period of time. On social media, images of Markham wearing sunglasses while speaking in an enclosed space quickly became the subject of memes, comments, and speculation. Many people criticized his association with the 1986 film Top Gun, in which True played a role. Even U.S. President Donald Trump commented on the incident. The French president's office later explained that Mark Rongs wearing sunglasses during the speech was due to a ruptured blood vessel in his eye, intended to protect his vision, and did not confirm the brand of the glasses. However, CEO Ivan Dontek insisted he could clearly recognize the glasses as Henry Julian's. He also stated that he personally sent the glasses to President McGrann in 2024. Earlier, Ivan Dontek's stock had risen nearly 6% on the 21st of the month before being temporarily suspended from automated trading for much of the day due to the volatile price swings. By the 22nd of the month, the stock traded briefly before being halted again and was on track to record its biggest single-day gain ever.